Where do Jewish people truly come from? For hundreds of years, this has been one of the most intensely debated questions in history. Some believe Jewish ancestry began in the ancient Middle East and remained mostly unchanged across time. Others argue it was shaped largely by exile, conversion, and long periods of life in Europe, North Africa, and Asia. For a very long time, these questions were answered almost entirely through written texts, religious tradition, and historical interpretation. But today, science is adding something entirely new to the conversation. For the first time in history, DNA allows researchers to trace Jewish ancestry back thousands of years and directly compare it with ancient populations. And what scientists are discovering is far more complex and far more fascinating than most people expect. So stay with me until the end, because we're about to explore the hidden story written inside Jewish DNA, from ancient archaeology to modern genetics. And before we begin, let me ask you a question. Do you think Jewish ancestry comes from one single origin or from many different paths over time? Share your thoughts in the comments. Long before scientists ever studied DNA, the land itself was already telling a story. Across the eastern Mediterranean lies a narrow region known as the Levant. For thousands of years, people have lived here without interruption. Cities were built, destroyed, and rebuilt again on the same ground. Generation after generation lived, worked, and raised families here. Archaeologists have uncovered ancient towns such as Megiddo, Lachish, and Jericho. These sites reveal something extremely important. There is no clear point where one population suddenly disappeared and another completely replaced it. Instead, the evidence points to continuity. Many traditional stories describe ancient conquests as total replacements. Entire peoples are said to vanish, wiped out by invasions or exile. But archaeology does not support that idea in this region. What it shows instead is long-term local survival. Before they were Israelites, before Judaism existed as a religion or written scripture, people already lived in this land. They spoke related languages, worshipped local gods, farmed the same soil, and passed their lives down through families. So the question is not whether Jewish history begins here. The deeper question is how far back those roots extend. Who were the first Israelites? Ancient texts describe groups known as Israelites appearing in the highlands of this region during the Late Bronze Age and Early Iron Age. For decades, historians debated where they came from. Some believed they arrived as outsiders, invading from elsewhere. Others argued they emerged from within the local population. Archaeology strongly supports the second explanation. Early Israelite settlements do not resemble foreign colonies. Their homes, tools, and food practices closely match those of nearby Canaanite communities. The main differences appear in religion and social organization, not in material culture. There is no archaeological evidence for a massive invasion that introduced an entirely new population. Instead, the evidence points to a gradual cultural transformation. Groups already living in the land began organizing themselves differently, developing new identities and traditions over time. This means the early Israelites were not strangers to the region. They were locals. Their identity formed within the land itself, shaped by shared ancestry, geography, and collective memory. For centuries, this conclusion rested on archaeology and historical reasoning alone. But in recent decades, scientists gained a new tool that allowed them to test it directly. For most of history, DNA could only be studied in living people. That changed when researchers learned how to extract genetic material from ancient human remains. In burial sites across the Levant, scientists analyzed skeletons from the Bronze Age, long before Judaism existed as a formal religion. These remains belong to people archaeologists identify as ancient Canaanites. When this ancient DNA was compared with that of modern populations, the results were striking. Modern Jewish populations, despite centuries of migration and exile, share a significant amount of genetic ancestry with these ancient Levantine individuals. And this connection appears across multiple Jewish communities, not just one. This finding challenged many long-held assumptions. It showed that while religion, language, and political power changed dramatically, the underlying population did not disappear. Empires rose and fell. Egypt ruled the region. Assyria conquered it. Babylon exiled elites. Yet the genetic signal remained surprisingly stable. The exile, described in historical texts, reshaped culture and belief, but it did not erase the people themselves. Most families remained genetically rooted in the region, even as political control shifted. This discovery confirmed what archaeology had been suggesting all along. Jewish ancestry did not begin with exile or migration alone. It is deeply tied to the ancient population of the land. To understand this continuity more clearly, scientists turn to Y chromosome DNA, which is passed from fathers to sons. This allows researchers to track male lineages across thousands of years. One Y DNA group appears again and again among Jewish men, haplogroup J. This haplogroup is common throughout the Middle East and especially concentrated among populations with ancient roots in the Levant. It appears at high frequencies among Jewish communities that lived far apart for centuries. Within this group, two major branches are particularly important. The first is J1. This lineage is closely associated with priestly Jewish families known as Kohanim. Genetic studies show that many Kohanim share a closely related Y chromosome pattern, suggesting descent from a small number of male ancestors who lived thousands of years ago in the region. The second major branch is J2. This lineage is linked to early agricultural societies and urban civilizations of the Eastern Mediterranean. It appears among Jewish populations as well as other Levantine groups, reflecting shared ancient ancestry rather than recent mixing. The key point is this: these lineages did not originate in Europe or elsewhere. They point back to the Middle East, and more specifically, to the same region where archaeology shows long-term population continuity. Judaism formed around these people. These people did not form around Judaism. Over time, Jewish communities spread far beyond their ancestral homeland. The expansion of the Roman Empire played a major role in this process. Wars, revolts, and political pressure pushed Jewish populations into North Africa, Europe, and other parts of the Middle East. This period is often described as a complete displacement, but genetics tells a more complicated story. When scientists compare Jewish DNA to that of surrounding host populations, they find something unusual. Jewish groups from different regions are often genetically closer to each other than their non-Jewish neighbors. This suggests that despite living among many different societies, Jewish communities preserved a shared ancestral core. Cultural rules, social boundaries, and community structures helped maintain this continuity. So far, we've focused on male ancestry, but genetic history is incomplete without looking at women. Mitochondrial DNA, passed from mothers to their children, tells a quieter story about family formation and survival. When scientists studied mitochondrial DNA among Jewish populations, they noticed something interesting. In many communities, especially Ashkenazi Jews, a small number of maternal lineages appear repeatedly. These lineages are ancient, but show signs of genetic bottlenecks, periods when only a small number of women contributed to future generations. This does not mean Jewish ancestry disappeared or changed suddenly. Instead, it reflects moments of hardship, persecution, migration, isolation, and rebuilding. Some women joined these communities through conversion or marriage. Others came from small founding groups that expanded over time. The maternal genetic pattern reflects survival, not conquest. Today, Jewish people are often described using terms like Ashkenazi, Sephardi, and Mizrahi. These labels reflect geography and history, not separate origins. While these groups develop distinct cultures, languages, and traditions, genetics consistently reveals a shared Middle Eastern core. Each group carries additional influences from the regions where they lived, but the foundation remains visible. Jewish identity spread geographically, not biologically. People moved, communities adapted, but ancestry endured. By now, a clear picture emerges. Jewish DNA is not the result of a single moment in history.
It reflects long-term continuity shaped by movement, adaptation, and survival. Archaeology shows ancient populations endured. Genetics confirms descent from Bronze Age communities. Y-DNA reveals deep Middle Eastern roots. Mitochondrial DNA shows resilience through hardship. Together, these lines of evidence tell a quiet but powerful story, not of disappearance, but of endurance. Jewish identity formed through culture, belief, and memory, resting on a biological foundation that remained remarkably stable across thousands of years. In the end, the most surprising revelation is not how much Jewish DNA changed, but how much of it stayed the same.